I've argued for a long time that there's a false dichotomy between practice and research, that there's an idea that somehow research is either something terribly magical and shiny that practitioners don't know about, or it's some dusty relic of no relevance to everyday practice. When in fact, when social workers are going about their everyday business of understanding the lives of children and families, they are in fact operating as researchers. They're trying to find out things in a rigorous and self-questioning way. They should be focused on the empirical content of what they're doing. And we also want them to be able to access an evidence base in a way that causes them to question underlying assumptions that they may be making about what's happening in families. So by introducing academics into collections of senior practitioners or into teams on a periodic basis, for them to take a real world problem that is being dealt with by the team and search the literature in a systematic way, and to feed back to the team a range of possible ways in which the research might help them to think about the situation with which they're dealing. Research is never going to solve it, because usually there will be a different range of findings from diverse studies, but it will expose people to where the lines of debate are and where knowledge is settled and where it isn't. So we hope that this pilot will produce that kind of response, and we look forward to seeing how it goes.
The pilot was set up to try and incorporate the use of research into everyday practice, which is what it says on the tin really, but also to try and give a tangible and a visible demonstration of the teaching partnership, which is made up of universities and of social workers, managers and in teams. We acknowledge that social workers, every minute of their day, every bit of their time is accounted for, and so we needed to pull together a model that was going to be accessible and useful to them, and that wasn't just a sort of repeat of going to a lecture and hearing about research in that forum.
One of the things we're interested in Rotherham is raising the standards of practice. One of the things we're quite keen to do is improve the use of research in the way we make decisions about our work with children and families. So I became involved with a group of advanced practitioners, and they are charged with quite a wide remit of developing their social workers in their teams, as well as being in practice themselves. And when I came across this model through the University Research Group, I was really keen to use that to encourage and deepen the use of research in social work practice.
Well, where I've been able to find it from is somewhere from 1989, which was called the seminar model. And that was used in social work, but I don't think very widely. And then it's been superseded within the coaching area, and a metaphor has been added, and it's now called the glass dome model. And it's designed to try and incorporate advice and direction as well as reflective discussion. So the main thing that we're hoping from this model is that it can be added on to existing group formats that exist in local authorities. So in Rotherham, the way that we're using it is that there's an existing advanced practitioner forum.
The forum that we used, my hope is that it's kind of wheels within wheels, that by using the expertise of the academics who come and support the work of the forum, we can then equip the advanced practitioners to go out into their teams and assist and advise and support workers who have often quite fine and difficult decisions to make, and to do that not just based on their best guess, but on also using evidence-inspired approach.
So the glass dome model incorporates reflective discussion, the presenting of live cases, the consideration of research, this is the first time this has been done within the glass dome model or the seminar model, and then moving on to advice giving. So it tries to cover all the bases of social work and research in it. So a case was chosen by the manager, or 2 cases were chosen by the manager, and these were sent in advance of a group meeting to the academic. And they would then search the academic databases to try and find research that social workers don't have access to. A lot of social workers have access to research from organisations like the Social Care Institute for Excellence and Research in Practice, but they often don't have time to look at it, or if they do, maybe they don't have time to process it, and there isn't a forum for looking at it. So just the process of having to identify a case which they would like research around already starts that sort of reflective processing prior to the group even meeting.
There's kind of sometimes I think an expectation that research can give very, very specific answers to practice problems, and sometimes the questions need reframing in dialogue between myself and the practitioner, but they're kind of formulated in a way that we can go away and do some research. We just do some desktop research, we do some literature searches, we sometimes use some of the contacts we've got who have expertise in areas that maybe we don't have in the university and elsewhere, and we go away and look at some key research. So it's not a systematic search of the literature, it's not expected to look at everything, and it's not doing a full evidence review, but it is looking at some current up-to-date research which might be helpful in the practitioner and the advanced practitioner thinking through some issues in the case.
The group then meets, and the group can be anything from 8 people, possibly up to about 20. I guess 12 would be your ideal number. And the case holder is asked to present their case for 5 minutes. The group has a facilitator, and they're also a timekeeper, and their job is to keep the structure of the group format of the glass dome. And so once the presenter has presented their case, the group is allowed to ask clarifying questions for 5, possibly 10 minutes. After that's happened, the researcher presents the research to the group that they have gathered around this particular case. At that point, when that's been delivered, and that happens for about 10 minutes, the case presenter is put under a metaphorical glass dome, and what they do then is witness the discussion that takes place. But they also take reflective notes on what they are hearing. The discussion of the research also throws up where there isn't research in anything, which is really great to hear about and can be fed back to the university in terms of research subjects for potential projects, maybe PhD subjects. So it not only generates thought process about the case itself and about the similar cases of people around the meeting, or cases that they may come across in the future which they don't have now, but it also generates ideas for future research. So the role of the social worker is to prepare the case. If they are one of the peers in terms of in the group itself, they need to listen and they need to ask curious, open questions rather than closed questions. And at the end of the group, social workers go round and they're asked to give their best piece of advice to the person who's been under the glass dome.
I acted as the person who was presenting a case and giving research at one point, and what that really helped with in that particular case was to have a more nuanced assessment of risk, really, to really consider what is the evidence, how do we apply it in this case, and that was then included in my assessment and discussed with my team manager. And what was interesting on a follow-up session that we did with another case, another research, that bit of research became relevant to another case, so it was quite good, I suppose, to feel that there was a piece of research that was relevant to a specific case, but it's also does feel like it's sort of building my knowledge and widening my sort of current knowledge around research, really, and not just falling back on the things I've looked at before.
So we've been very clear in terms of the interaction. We're not there to give, if you like, practice advice. the practitioners have expertise in their own practice and they know the details of the case. What we're doing is providing some research which can help practitioners think, what might I think about in this case, rather than necessarily what do I need to do. So it's a more reflective forum.
What's quite interesting is that often the research isn't necessarily to do with social work itself. Often it's in a related area, to do with criminology or medicine or psychiatry or some other related discipline. But workers find it very useful, and there's a very high level of reflection in the group, high level of questioning, and the model really allows workers, I think, to go away feeling they have received some very good quality advice, and they feel quite secure going back to their managers then to reflect and make practice decisions in connection with their managers.
So some of the issues that have come up in terms of ones that practitioners are struggling with, about gang membership, about drug dealing and the impact on child welfare, about issues to do with child sexual exploitation and child abuse and links between them, aren't necessarily directly well covered in the literature, certainly in, if you like, the social work literature. So we've had to look further afield, we've had to make contacts with a few other academics, and then look at what that research says and think about, with the advanced practitioners, how it might be applied and how it might be used for practitioners to think through their practice.
I presented the first case and just actually printed off some of the research because I'm about to write my final evidence, and I want to bring that in to show that, you know, it's been considered, and I think that'll be beneficial for the court and the parties to see that we've tried to do things the best way we can for the families we work with. The case that I actually presented, I actually had a discussion with the mum about the research, obviously in a sort of an appropriate way for her, but I spoke to her that I'd been struggling with that case, and I wanted to make sure I supported her the best as possible, and as part of that research there were ideas about things I could encourage her to do, and I had that conversation with her, and that it helped our relationship as well, because you know, she was seeing that I was trying to support her despite the fact, you know, her son wasn't in her care, and there were a lot of other complexities in the case, particularly with that link with the university. I think that's invaluable for us because we don't have the time to sit and do as much reading as we would like to, so it's good to have people that also know how to do sort of balanced research and can present that to us.
There may be other ways in terms of getting other academics at another university involved, and looking at ways in which the model that we're using in Rotherham, and I think is working pretty well, can be used in other local authorities in the teaching partnership.
We've seen some of the ways in which our pilot has been implemented at Sheffield. Clearly there are some challenges in making sure that this kind of practice is embedded and sustainable across our teaching partnership. One of the ways in which we've thought of doing this is by working with groups of practitioners, as you've heard from Robin, so that they can cascade this learning through the teams, and really a way of thinking, not just chunks of knowledge. But we're also looking at trying to embed this in our qualifying and post-qualifying curricula, because when students are coming to the university, they have access to databases of electronic materials and the library and a range of academic resources that they don't necessarily have yet in practice. So we hope to be able to use that resource to build this kind of expertise into teams, so that maybe our master students who will have already developed skills in literature searching through their dissertation can take really pertinent problems from the teams in which they're placed and find the research base and encourage discussions about the relevance or otherwise of those findings for particular cases or sets of issues with which practitioners are dealing.